One of the most unmistakable scents ever created, one of the most iconic bottles, and probably one of the most polarizing fragrances that ever hit the shelves. Hello everyone and welcome to Memory Flow, where we discuss fragrance and fragrance collecting, and today we are talking about A-Man. Patchouli is one of the most beloved but also one of the most polarizing notes in perfumery. Now during the 80s it sort of became overrated and certainly underappreciated, probably because of its overuse during the hippie era. And of course it was still being used in perfumes because patchouli is such a lucrative ingredient, and it's also quite cheap to produce, but it kind of stopped getting the center stage, being in the center stage of perfumes. So this, however, changes in 1992 when Thierry Mugler launches Angel. Angel takes advantage of the huge complexity that patchouli has as an ingredient to show a very interesting face of patchouli, which is a gourmand take. And we all know how Angel smells. It's chocolatey, it's honeyed, and it's sugary. Now Angel quickly became a bestseller, and this meant that patchouli was once again in high regard. And this was the beginning of an ascending trend, because you have to realize that even if Angel is not your favorite scent, we still have to give it that as a trendsetter. But more of Angel in a future video, because right now I want to focus mainly on its male counterpart, which is A-Man. Angel Man, because it was called Angel Man at one point, was launched in 1996, and this was also the year that Acqua di Gio was launched, just to give you a perspective of that year and its launches, and maybe its competition and what it was up against. It is Angel Man, or A-Man, I will call it A-Man from now on, is, in my opinion, the perfect counterpart for the already famous Angel, the feminine one. And when we speak of perfume couples, or masculine or feminine variants, I always say that it's a very interesting challenge to make such perfumes, and it sometimes fails. It fails miserably, or maybe that was not even the intent, but not with Angel, because Jacques Huclier, the perfumer who made this particular fragrance right here, manages to keep the general meaning and the general DNA of the original Angel, and therefore he created this beautiful counterpart, which could be considered a flanker of Angel, and not necessarily a male-oriented fragrance. And he did this by risking, because he risked going against the trend, because had he followed that trend, we would probably have gotten another usual freshie or another boring masculine fougere, as it was kind of the idea of the time for male fragrances, and it still is, but not so much. It's become sort of a rarity to see that now. But in that time, in the 90s, remember 1996, Acqua di Gio, 1994, Issei Miyake, and then CK1, the great unisex. That was kind of the idea. Some aquatics, some fougeres, but not A-Man. This was a little trendsetter in itself, and this is how trends are set, by risking a bit. So how does how does a man smell? What does this perfume smell like? Well, I'm sure you do know, but because this is quite famous. So, story time. In 2003, maybe 2005, when I was first smelling a man, I was extremely surprised to find out that this was actually a masculine scent, because this was so audacious, so out of the ordinary, so different from anything you would smell when you would enter perfume store. And when I couldn't, it was so true to its female counterpart, which I knew and I liked, but I couldn't get it back then, because I thought it was a faux pas to wear something that was not marketed for your gender, which is stupid. Of course, we know that now. So I couldn't actually believe that this was marketed for men, and of course I had to buy it. I loved it from the start. So those were the times when I didn't have a clue about perfume notes. I had no idea what patchouli was. I was in my 20s, and my so-called wardrobe of the time had maybe 3 or 4 bottles. So to my untrained nose, a man smelled just as it does today. I would get some cotton candy, I would get some chocolate, I would get caramel, some vanilla, but even so, the general, the total, the sum of the parts did not smell edible, which I loved. This was remarkably perfumey, and it kind of gave me a sense of relaxation, sort of laid back, sexiness, and also confidence, like I could do anything while I was wearing this fragrance. However, when I smell it today, with all the stuff I know now, the smell is a bit less mysterious to my nose. I can break it down more easily, but the general idea, hasn't changed. So the notes for a man are quite extensive, and I will not read them to you, but you can do that anytime, whenever you want. Just go to Fragrantica and have a read. But I will tell you that a man to my nose, has 3 major aspects, and they are as follows. So first, I would get a gourmand smell, a gourmand aspect, better said, which is, as I said, it's chocolatey, it's caramel, it's cotton candy, and this probably comes from the benzoin, which is sort of vanillic, caramel-like. There's not a lot of burning things going on in a man. There's not a lot of burning, but there is some. Also, there's not a lot of smoke, but I'm getting sidetracked. So there's another major aspect, which is an herbal, earthy, woody smell to it. And this comes from the lavender, of course, the patchouli, and the sandalwood, which gives it the creaminess. This aspect comes off as warm, inviting, deep, and syrupy. Now, the final aspect, I have no idea what to call, but it's sort of reminiscent of hot wax, maybe hot rubber, something hot, maybe, but it's not smoke, and it's not burned, although it does have something that reminds me of opium. And of course, all of these aspects come from the patchouli, because, as I said, patchouli is extremely complex as an ingredient, and it has that perfect quality where it blends so well with other ingredients to create many aspects. Also, the blending of this perfume is extremely well done, in my opinion, because you know, you can tell when the blending is really good when you cannot really tell different notes apart that easily. The whole fragrance has a vibe, like it's so well put together, and also the aspects that I talked about are very intimately tied to one another, so they're not very far apart. Oh, there's the hot wax, there's the rubber, there's the vanilla, there's the patchouli. No, everything is kind of tied together, and when you smell chocolate, you also get the earthiness, and when you smell the woodiness, you also get the vanillic aspects, because they are very tied to one another. And also, like all, or like most patchoulis, Amen has a very nice evolution on the skin, and it becomes, of course, it becomes more woody, it becomes more earthy and warmer as it dries down. So all in all, I would consider Amen to be a very well put together fragrance, and I have to say, closer to its launch, and maybe the early 2000s, late 90s, early 2000s, when I was getting acquainted to it, it was considered to be quite off-putting and even offensive to most people, in my region at least, and this can happen even today, although I do think that the noses of today are way more accustomed to these types of sweet scents, but it did do that. It used to be quite a love or hate situation, and this was also true for the female counterpart, for Angel. And I do understand this, because Amen can be considered too sweet or too cloying by some, and it truly can be. Also, it's a strong scent. I get easily more than 8 hours on my skin, and if this is not your cup of tea, I can imagine you having a very bad time with this. However, what I do find is that it's very pleasant on other people. This is a type of scent that tends to be very pleasant in the wild when you get it, when you smell it. And it might be, for you, it might be the type of smell that you rather enjoy smelling on other people and not necessarily on yourself. But it is quite pleasant to smell, and it does get compliments, believe it or not. So what about today? Oh, also, I wanted to show you the original, because I never throw away things. This is my original Angel Man. This is the Angel Man box. This is a box from 2005, and this doesn't contain, it contains also only the refill, and this is bone dry, as you can see. This is bone dry, and it did used to be called Angel Man, and now it's called just Amen, I think, and also the company, the brand itself is no longer Thierry Mugler, is just Mugler, and we know why. And also, this is the bottle. I don't know if I've shown it to you before. This is the rubber flask. It did come in a lot of I especially remember and do prefer the metal flask, but alas, those are quite hard to get your hands on. But if you can get your hands on one of the metal flasks, do hold on to it, because they are very beautiful. And you can still get refills for that. This is a 50 milliliter, and I have almost 20 milliliters left out of this. And this also is a very old bottle. This is a 2013 bottle from the batch code on the rear. So how does Amen compare to other fragrances we have today? Does Amen stand the test of time? Well, so my opinion on this is that although Amen is definitely a classic and it's definitely a trendsetter in its own right, Amen is also the perfect example of a fragrance that was buried by its flankers, and even surpassed by some of its flankers. And of those, there's quite a few of them. So this made Amen to lose a lot of popularity, and for people to prefer its flankers, such as Pure Malt, Pure Havan, Pure Tonka, Pure Shot, and whatnot. There are tens of flankers. I don't know about them. So the question is, after these 20 or so milliliters will inevitably be gone, will I be repurchasing it? And I think maybe not. Maybe not, although I will never say never. But I do feel as if I outgrew Amen. I don't feel like it's necessarily for me anymore, although I do admit that I do find myself missing it from time to time, and it certainly will be a fragrance that I will appreciate, even if from afar. Only time will tell. So there you have it. That was my review of Amen, a stunning fragrance from the mid-90s, and I hope this helps you in your search for that perfect scent. And with that being said, do consider subscribing to my channel because it helps me a lot. And until next time, remember, fragrance creates memories, and may yours be happy.